Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us already. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, Dino de Cespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, buddy. I thought that was an excellent week of football, week 18 in the NWSL. Mm-hmm. And looks like you saw an eventful match yourself down there in Florida.
Big time event. Felt like pay-per-view, appointment viewing. It was one of those where, we'll get into it in a minute, but obviously my Orlando Pride took care of business. That's probably an understatement against Gotham. And in one of my favorite types, well, we can say it, a statement win.
Oh, of course.
Right? First in the table versus third in the table, some nerves in the building. I think the energy was like very, very interesting. And then as soon as the ball starts rolling, wasn't that?
It was not. Let me just tell you, to take fans behind the curtain, Dino de Cespedes, 2 for 2 in statement wins this weekend. Obviously, one for his Orlando Pride, one for his Miami footballing Hurricanes. So I think I'll crack a beer ski for that if you're interested in that kind of thing.
Yeah. I was interested.
You were. I think you earned it with both of your squads getting dubs like that. Both very impressive from my view over here.
Yeah, I mean, we breed champions down here.
It's true. Can't argue with that.
All right, man. You already teased it a little bit. NWSL Week 18 in the books. Things are getting interesting. Some arrows pointing up, some arrows pointing down. We'll get into those in a little bit. With that said, where do you want to get started?
We have to start with, for my money, the best team in the league. Your Orlando Pride 2, Gotham FC 0. As you mentioned, it was convincing, but I watched it on television. You were in the building. You saw it in person. Please, my good man, after you.
Definitely convincing. We were talking a little bit about this pre-show. From the first kick of the game, I wish I kind of went back and saw. I think it was Tierna Davidson just blast the ball upfield. The most hopeful of balls. Just like let's just see if we can kind of like pick up some field position here.
Right.
I was taken aback a little bit by that. I was just like, okay, this is not what I was expecting. You obviously see those lineups and who's playing. I think even maybe last week's show or the week prior, I mentioned it. I was not shy about saying, hey, I think Gotham more talented. I think maybe Washington's more talented as well, but wasn't how it played out. I think I have to start with Adriana.
Yeah. Just
tremendous game. 0.4 XG for Adri, 2.0 real G for Adri. We'll just kind of like let that start. 6-minute Kylie Strom takes on everybody, on an area ball in, takes a shot, but, is able to head the ball back into a dangerous area up in the air. Adriana doesn't even let the ball hit the ground. Full volley, smashes the ball into the back of the net. Whatever balloon of nerves was kind of like bouncing around the field, that goal just burst that balloon immediately. The nerves were gone, and it from 1 second to the next became a little bit of a party there.
Yeah, and a deserved party. I think I'm going to stick with my cruddy analysis from last week when we talked about Orlando, and my whatever I was trying to spit out ended up being all your players are just really good at a lot of things. But I just want to say, like, Angelina serves in the ball to give Strom the opportunity for that header that you're talking about. And it's a perfect ball. It's placed like right on the correct side of the penalty spot. So Berger has to like come a little way off her line to even contest it. Like you said, Strom is able to like be strong and kind of get the ball back into the area. And then Adriana, that volley is so difficult. And there are a lot of players in the NWSL who can make that play. But it just feels like with Orlando on this run, they are making that play with so much more consistency than any other team in the league.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the placement of the finish, it's like dead center in the goal. It's probably like 7 or 8 feet off the ground, like just perfectly placed, like video game type finish. Mm-hmm. Adriana not done. Angelina not done. Yep. 13 minutes later, I mean, this is just how quickly it happens. Emily Sams controls the ball, regains possession, a simple pass, and then a beautiful ball over the top, Mahomes-esque, if you will, to Adriana, who basically is, that ball sets into motion the 1v1 Adriana versus Jenna Neiswanger. And Adriana clearly mistook Neiswanger for a delicious plate of barbecue chicken. And just, Adriana is the type of player where an early goal is depending on where you land on her as a player, either the best thing or the worst thing. I'm a big Adriana fan. I just love when she kind of lets it rip. And in that moment, I'm like, if she gets the edge on Niswanger, this is a wrap.
Yeah.
Just because you can kind of feel, you can just kind of see the way she was moving, her level of determination. She gets the edge on Niswanger, a low fastball, and now it's 2-0. We're not even 20 minutes into the match.
It's just superlative skill from her. And you just, for the muttering, which I absolutely understand from whether it's Pride Twitter, Pride Internet in general, every fan base, you're going to get that. But when you have a player with that kind of talent, I would much rather them just continuously try stuff.
Hell yeah.
You see it in every single sport. When you have a superstar player, there are going to be those times where their totally rational confidence, because they're a great player, kind of starts to blur into that line of maybe some irrational confidence in some areas. I think she controls it pretty well, to your point. She's a great player. I want to put you on the spot with this. Is she the second best player on the Pride? Is she the third best player on the Pride?
Damn, that's tough. That's really tough. She's clearly playing off Bonda.
Yes.
Right? I think Emily Sams has to be in that conversation.
Yes.
You might be able to make a case for Angelina too. I would say there's a clear 1-2. I would say there's a clear 1-2.
Yeah.
I'd say Bonda was 1, Sams 2, or however you want to think about that. And then there's just like this collection of players in there where you're just like, okay, Summer Yates look great.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie Abello looks great consistently. Strom, who's Sam's, center back partner there, also great. You have the greatest player in the history of the game just running around the field, like finding the ball finds me. Okay, let's make a little magic here. Marta, still unbelievable. Like
Absolutely.
You just cannot get the ball from her. So I would say Adri's like top 5, top 6, but you could make an argument, I think, for 3.
There we go. And wow, we didn't even rehearse that. I'm just in total agreement with you. All that question was meant to do was to just illustrate the point. She is somewhere between this team's 3rd and 6th best player, and she is awesome. So when you have Adriana out there, and like you made a good point as well, she's playing off of Benda, your best player, who has an argument for best player in the league. Well, I'll say it again. I think they're the best team in the NWSL. I think the double is extremely realistic, and I think them not losing a match in the regular season is very realistic as well.
Damn, you had to bring that up. I'm going to say this with a deepish level of shame. Mm-hmm. So on last week's episode, I made the strong proclamation that I would hold old Coach Seb Hines' feet to the fire.
Of course.
Your boy got the opportunity in the press conference. Didn't come through. I think the moment might have been too big for me. I asked what I thought was a good question. And Seb's he gave me some really good stuff on just their approach defensively, which I was like just immensely curious about.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to get on myself too hard.
It's fine.
But I'm going to be honest, man. I didn't want to jinx it.
Oh, there we go. That's the part I was wondering.
I'm in the building. The vibes are fucking great. Like, you could tell from all 3 players. Corey Dyke was in the presser, Kylie Strom in the presser too, who gets the assist on the first Adriana goal, and then Seb Hines kind of closes it out. You can tell, they were still wired to the max. Like, it's not one of these wins where it's like, all right, take care of business kind of win. So-and-so came to town, did what we needed to do, 3-1, 3-0, we're on to next week. It was more like, like an exhale, like everything was like the whole press was a big giant organization-wide exhale.
Wow.
So I just couldn't bring myself to be that guy. Just be like, all right, I'm just gonna suck the air out of this whole press conference here with a dorky question. Now, still some games to be played, as I like to say.
Oh, yeah.
So there'll be some opportunities maybe as we get closer here to that 26th and final match. I don't know. I might be able to muster up the gumption to ask Coach about that.
Friday, September 13th. Orlando Pride at home versus Kansas City Current. They win that one. Come on. Then you have Dash at home. They get the Spirit at home. I'm just thinking about home games. I'm skipping the away matches because just of your opportunities. But you know me, buddy. I would never peer pressure you into asking a question that you don't want to ask. So ask it at your leisure, or don't ask it if you're afraid of the jinx. I will say, because I'm in the tank for this team as well. I love watching them. I love their style of play. The defense is phenomenal. I did for a split second, like 2 seconds before kickoff, I was like, if they lose, I'm going to be bummed. But then we could also say that there's an ITC jinx that the first match after we posited the idea that they could be invincible, that they would lose. But obviously that was dashed right away. And I was like, okay, there's zero chance they're losing this match.
That was the craziest part. It was just like, I was super pumped for this game just to kind of see what this would look like, first in the standings versus third in the standings, defending champions versus, aspiring champions.
Yep.
The stats in this one tell an interesting story as well. Check this. I mean, this is funny. I'm not even going to tell you which team is which, but I want to read you off some stats.
Okay.
Possession, 50.5 to 49.5. Total shots, 16 to 13. Shots from inside the box, 11 to 10. Passes, 399 to 393. Pass accuracy, 82.5 to 82.2. In the lower leverage parts of the game, pretty even. The one stat that I think tells the story of the match, though, Orlando forced Gotham into terrible shots. Yep. They had 16 total, 2 on target. I think one was Niswanger from way downtown.
Yeah. 6
of their shots total came from outside the 18. Orlando, on the other hand, 11 of their 13 shots from inside the box. I asked Seb about this in the press conference with regard to how were you able to just close off entire areas of the pitch, have every outlet covered, and then also get in passing lanes? So you have a defender that's not really in the play. They're in between, spots, and they are just positioned perfectly to be in a passing lane to take away something 10 or 15 yards over their shoulder. So I asked Seb about that, and here's what he said. Quote, "There's obviously a strategy to it. There's players knowing their roles and responsibilities, but I think the standout for me is their mentality, their attitude," end quote. He then went on to list everybody who saw action along the back line, and then went on to say, quote, "There's also players who didn't play in the back line. They're programmed for those moments as well. Taking the last 15 minutes, embracing those moments, really important, because as teams are trying to get back into the game, you have to be switched on, you have to concentrate, and that's solely down to their mentality," end quote.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay. I love it. I mean, it's the full admission. We already mentioned one of your other sporting loves, the Miami Hurricanes. Let's mention the other one, the Miami Heat. Where people ask him how they play that active zone defense that they employ. And Spoelstra says, because we run their asses off during preseason, and you have to commit to playing that kind of defense. And it feels like very relative to what the Pride do, where playing that kind of defense, that swarming defense. And it's interesting what you said about them being in the opposing team's passing lanes, because they seem to be able to transition right from that part of their defense of playing the passing lanes. But then all of a sudden their teammates, once you guys steal the ball back, now you already have options for passing lanes for your offense. It has to be an incredibly demanding and tiring, both physically and mentally for them as players. But it is a system that I don't think I've seen a single team, at least in the matches that I've watched. Maybe the Courage match that you guys drew them in North Carolina. But teams are just having a hell of a time even figuring it out.
It's tough because Benda could go one against anybody, and you just cannot stop her 1v1. If you take away the left, she'll just run around you. She's fast enough to run around you and still cross back over you to kind of reach the ball.
Yep.
You also have to give tremendous credit to both Haley McCutcheon and Angelina, who we mentioned, who are both excellent in defense.
Yep.
And they are immediate flipping the switch between defense and offense.
Yep.
And once the ball's won back, you've got Adriana, who makes that run. Niswanger loves to kind of creep up in the middle. I think she was technically on the lineup card. She was listed as a midfielder, but she was playing sort of in her normal, deepish kind of role as well.
Right.
But you have Angelina, you have McCutcheon, who offensively, they're great high IQ players as well. They're looking to get the ball upfield. They're looking to run when that's the opportunity. And then you have, like I said, Marta, Summer Yates, who I also mentioned as well. So it's you also have different players with different skill sets, different styles of attack that can go to different things in different spots. It's I'm not sure what you're really supposed to do as a team trying to contend with this. What were your biggest takeaways, I think, watching this Pride team against this tough competition?
I mean, you nailed it right away with the long ball from Davidson to start the match, but there was really no point during that match where Gotham was playing their game, two-time guest on our show, Bridie O'Toole, on her great YouTube channel, Busy Watching Women's Soccer, has talked about Gotham FC and how they kind of play like almost in a circular pattern, like around the outside of the pitch. Your defense they just shut off the water of like whatever it is, like any team that comes up against them. So like if you like to play in the middle, like Kansas City likes to play in the middle, you guys worked them a couple weeks back, like right before the Olympic break. Gotham likes to play around the edges. You guys just take it away. I'm glad that we spend enough time. I think that we are not guilty of this, but sometimes in football you have the prolific scorer up top and people really focus on that player. I think that you and I and then the other knowers of ball in our community rightly point out you guys have an unbelievably stout defense. You have midfielders, like you said, who are willing to kind of track back and play that defense. Benda mixes it up back there on defense a lot. She had a play where she just, I think, completely ripped the ball off of Ella Stevens. And the announcer, I guess this is one thing I caught on television, I can't remember exactly what the announcer said, but just it was something to the effect of strong, just as Benda just rips the ball off Stevens and then just starts pushing it upfield. And then you have Anna Morehouse back there. So like not only are you a complete nightmare who throws every attacking principle of your opponent, you throw all those things into disarray, then you have Benda and Adriana and Marta up there. And then Julie Doyle came on late in this one. And scored a banger, but I think there were no good angles on the broadcast. It looked like Doyle may have been a hair offside. It looked really, really close. I don't know if you got a good glimpse of it from the box or in the replay or anything, but it looked very, very close.
Yeah, very close. It was on the far side of the field. The finish, though,
fantastic.
Let's go. I mean, that's another one of those embarrassment of riches kind of moments. Benda, too. Didn't get on the score sheet today. No assists. Drew 3 yellow cards. Just because she's better than you. And there's nothing you could do except resort to illegal means to try to slow her down.
That's it.
Orlando Pride obviously sitting pretty. 6 points clear. Top of the table. Not a single game in hand for any of the other teams out there. Just 8 matches left on the fixture list. So we're going to see kind of what happens here. But Orlando very, very much in the driver's seat. I mentioned on our last show, it's kind of nice when you can't give up the lead in one weekend. Now it's kind of tough to give up the lead in 2 weekends.
Exactly.
This team that's given up just 12 goals this season in 18 matches. It's a head scratcher just to be able to say that out loud. We'll see if they're able to keep that going. One last note on the press conference. I asked 23-year-old Corey Dyke, rookie out of Penn State, just her 3rd start in the league and what that meant for the progression of her career. And here's what she had to say, quote, "I'm always ready to give what the team needs. And today that was a 90-minute game. So I'm grateful for that." Corey takes a pause, then goes on to say, quote, "My grandpa passed away this week. Going into this game, I just kind of want to dedicate it to him. And I think it was really, really special to be able to have today be my first full 90 in the regular season and feel good about that performance. So I know he's proud of that."
Wow.
And it was definitely a moment at the presser. I mean, like, it really kind of puts things into perspective. And all I could think was, Grandpa's probably really proud of the ass kicking that you laid on Gotham tonight. But really cool moment for the young Corey Dyke, who played really well and had a tough task. You can kind of see on the field, first 15, 20 minutes, Corey's doing a lot to kind of get up to the speed of the game, but then really, really settled into the game nicely. He was anticipating really well and just kind of like morphed right into that Orlando Pride defense, mind-milled, hive mind mentality.
Yeah.
And was just kind of like right in lockstep with the rest of the defense. So shout out to Corey, shout out to Corey's family. Really, really cool moment, really big win. And hopefully just the beginning of what's going to be a great career here.
Yeah, man. Condolences to Corey and her family. Like you said, it just shows the mental toughness that these athletes, just have to reach an elite level league like this, to be able to kind of summon something after you gotten to get shaken up like that. So yeah, incredible performance. And she is just yet another key cog in that machine that Seb Hines is kind of producing there. And while we give a lot of credit to the managers, and, Seb Hines deserves a ton of credit, he has the players to implement that kind of system, and they're the ones that make it go. So every single match from here on out is must-watch TV.
Absolutely. I mean, they look like the best team in the world.
For sure.
Like, I didn't quite get there until last night.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, this team is, if not the best, all you're going to be able to do is tell me that there are teams as good as them because it's hard to imagine a team better than what they're doing. I mean, it's like 12 goals in 18 matches in this league it's absurd. Like it's an absurd stat. They've given up 1 goal in 6 league matches.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty
good. They played 540 plus minutes. They gave up 1 goal, and that was to Tabitha Chawinga.
Yo, there you go. All right. So even then, there's like an asterisk on that where it's like, well, we had to give up that one, obviously. That's
scores on everybody.
That's incredible. Yeah. And I mean, they put up 2 in fairly, I mean, we talked about the great skill, but they put up 2 in fairly ho-hum fashion. The team that's given up the second fewest goals is Gotham FC. And now they've given up 15. Mm-hmm. That's after Orlando putting 2 on them. So, I mean, they're just unbelievably impressive. I like you raising the stakes, calling them the best team in the world. I love it. I think, at worst, there's an argument for it. At absolute, you could make a very, very credible case for it. I don't think there's any question for that.
You know what kind of tipped me on this? And I know this is a great player, a player that I really like, Jess Carter. And she's coming off a grueling season. Chelsea, she's just like, all right, let's run it back.
Yeah.
Just absolute warrior. But I'll say she didn't totally stand out on the pitch. You could kind of see her skills. You can see the accuracy. You can see her IQ. The last thing I'll say about Orlando, I feel totally comfortable kind of putting them in that best team in the world conversation because to my eye, there are no weaknesses.
Right.
Like there's no spot on the field. There's no player. There's it's a little shaky. Like, okay, they survived that. Like there's none of that. It's just a straight dominance. It's smothering. It's suffocating. I want to scoot ahead though. I want to talk a little bit more playoff picture. This is a conversation that we got rolling last week. I think when you look at the top 6 NWSL, you've got Orlando, Washington, Gotham, the KC Current in 4th, North Carolina Courage in 5th, Portland Thorns in 6th. They drop a tough one at home to Bay FC. We'll talk about that one in a little bit. But those 6, points-wise, probably feeling pretty comfortable about scooting into the playoffs. After 6, though, things get a little interesting. Chicago's at 7, and I know you got some stuff for that gigantic clump of teams from 8 to 11 or 8 to 13 or 14, wherever you want to kind of set the cutoff. What do we need to know about this last stretch run of this NWSL season?
Well, when it comes to that group of teams, one of the things that I thought about, especially after all the matches were settled, was, man, the NWSL script writers are on one in this mid-season plot twist fest that we had in Week 18. So Bay FC hops up to 8th place after their big Friday night win over Portland. And so from 8 to 11, we have Bay FC sitting on 21 points, Angel City FC in 9th, also on 21 points, but they are behind because they have 1 fewer win. Racing Louisville in 10th on 19 points, and Seattle Reign in 11th on 17 points. So 4 points separating 8 through 11. And what a coincidence, everybody. In Week 19, Bay FC plays Racing Louisville in San Francisco, and Angel City FC plays Seattle Reign in Los Angeles. And so we have a potential for even more movement after next week.
Pretty incredible. Definitely some NBA playoff play-in game type vibes with these 4 wrestling for 2 spots. I think it's also interesting. I mean, I think Chicago at 7, things have started to creak a little bit there as well. Obviously, they lose a tough one at Angel City, 2-1, give up the late one to Sydney Leroux. Mm-hmm. We're going to get into some predictions here because I really want to hear who you think is going to grab those last 2 spots, especially if you agree with me that top 6 sort of locked somewhat into place there.
I think Portland at 6, they feel kind of locked. Like it might be one of those very thin, like master locks where like just a real nice pair of bowl cutters, you could just easily clip that thing off. Not that I know anything about those kind of things, but they're sitting on 27 points. They've lost 2 in a row. It wasn't particularly close when they lost to Gotham 2 weeks ago. It wasn't particularly close when they lost to Bay FC 3-1 on Friday night, but 27 points plus 3 goal differential. And we've seen, like Portland, they started the season slow and then they went on a great run. And now it seems like they're kind of hitting another dip. So I don't know if Portland is our roller coaster club this season or what, but they're going to want to turn around this downswing as soon as possible to make sure that Chicago doesn't kind of creep up and start giving them some trouble. So I'll agree with you. We'll keep those top 6 and we can kind of focus on 7 to 11. And so when it comes to those last 2 playoff spots, I think I'm going to say this. I mean, I realize they're sitting in 10th place right now. I think I'm going to place a take chip on Racing Louisville, figuring it out a little more. They have 4 wins on the season, but they have 7 draws, 7 losses. They have a 0 goal differential. We talked about them last week. Mm-hmm. Bad loss to the Reign, I think. Kind of some weird things happen. So Seattle gets a penalty. Ji So-yun scores a banger of a free kick. And then Ji gets on the end of a corner kick from Sofia Huerta, and it nicks off one of their defenders, and they get an own goal. And so the Reign's 3 goals are a penalty, a free kick, and an own goal. And it's like, okay, that's probably not the most sustainable thing for Seattle, even though I think they played better than they have in past weeks. But I would also say it seemed a bit unlucky for Louisville. So I don't know if they're going to finish 7th or 8th, but I'm going to put Louisville in the playoffs. Am I crazy?
I don't think so. I mean, we talked about the talent that they've got on that team, their level of toughness. I like the roster and I like the way they play. And it was a totally funky kind of outcome. Yeah. This is a match that they led in 2-1. Usually you expect points, usually expect the win, especially when you're playing at home against a non-playoff team. But I think there's probably something to be said about the Reign side as well. I mean, I'm kind of like trying to figure out who I'm going to put in my last 2 playoff spots. The Reign are somewhat in contention, I think, for me mentally, just because I think they're starting to like put some stuff together, some of the personnel moves that they made. G obviously having, a match-winning kind of last 20, 25 minutes.
Yep.
Textbook definition difference maker.
Yep.
Ji So-yun in this match. And we had talked about at multiple points in the season, like where is the Reign's comeback win? Where is the Reign's, turn a loss into a win, turn a loss into a draw? I think this is something that we've mentioned a few times. Now we might be starting to see it, and they're not that far behind now. Like now that they're playing really well, this is the time of year where you really want to be playing well. And I think we're starting to see the organizational kind of like level of excellence start to influence, like leak onto the field and really start to inspire some of these players. But you're the Seattle Reign guy. Am I crazy now for kind of like considering that this team might be able to sneak in here?
I was concerned that maybe I was being a bit of a homer. And even last week, after they got that, awesome win on Megan Rapinoe's jersey retirement, Emery Adama scores the last minute goal with some help from the Cosmos to get it past Casey Murphy. But no, I think what you're seeing, and I agree with you on it, is like from my notes from watching that match against Louisville, Anna Maria Cerna-Gorsevich is just better than what we used to have on the field in some of those positions for long stretches. She just made things happen. She's the one who played Jess Fishlock through to force the penalty. Jalen Howell is such a pro. She's going to be useful either as a sub for Fishlock or Quinn, like in certain spots. But yesterday, they played all 3 of them together. She was still able to make some plays and have good chemistry with them. Narilia Mondesir, who we talked about, Haitian forward who was acquired a few weeks ago, Narilia prefers to go by Coco. So for everybody going forward, I'll refer to her that way. She came in and showed her skill again. She didn't do a ton in terms of like creating like a lot of pressure, but she just has moments. Like there was one where she settled the ball and then made like 3 moves on the defender just to get herself some space. And it's like, okay, the skill is very clearly here. And so when you kind of talk about the general quality of the Reign improving, I think they did that in the transfer window, and now there needs to be some more gelling. Emery Adamas is a young player. She's at the U20 World Cup. Jordan Bugg is a good player. She's at the U20 World Cup. They're going to come back to the squad here in a few weeks, I would imagine. So no, I don't think it's totally crazy, and this is kind of what they did last year, where they did not do themselves any favors earlier in the season. But Laura Harvey and her team, they have good plans out there for every match that they go. So the players are going to be in some positions. They just need that little bit of quality to kind of catch up. It's not going to be easy. I don't think it's crazy to think that they could make the playoffs. I don't know if I would place the bet on it, though.
That's fair. So obviously this weekend, we've got Seattle back in action against Angel City, who gets that big late winner to beat Chicago and kind of like throw their hat in the mix as a playoff team. I think the case for them, it might be something around like an Alyssa Thompson. She's starting to look like a real player, like capital P player in this league, especially after going the first 16 matches scoreless. And now she's got 3 goals in 2 matches.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if that is able to continue. And then I think when you think about maybe making the case for Bay FC as well, you could probably say to yourself, okay, Asisa Oshwala, 3 goals on the season, just a single assist. I think Kunda Naji is also on 3 goals. I think she's got 2 assists. You could make the case that Bay FC in 8th, and you've only got 6 goals from those two those 2 rock stars, might be getting into the stretch run of the season. I think those are 2 players that you could see maybe outdoing their early season productivity here during this stretch run. Tired, there's some injuries, and obviously we saw Kunda Naji have a big impact in that one against Portland. So that would be the one, like those would be the 2 cases that you could make. Bay FC could maybe expect something from those 2 superstars. And then Alyssa Thompson, this just might be, I mean, this is a player still 19 years old.
Yep.
Like, we got to keep that in mind. She just looks incredibly fast and super duper twitchy and very hungry for goal. Like something's working for her.
Great positioning on her goal where Nair is able to push it away. Quality save from Nair, but Thompson standing in the exact right spot, cool as you like, tap in goal. Yeah, good to see her coming on in that way. I think also for Bay FC, I'm going to switch it back to Bay FC real quick. Adding Abby Dahlkemper, good idea to help kind of shore up the defense. Quality player, gets on the score sheet, scores their first goal against Portland with a header. But as the match carried on, I'm glad you bring up Kunda Naji here. And our pal, the one and only Leanne Sanderson on the call on the Amazon Prime game, talked about Kunda Naji and that she has had, frankly, a pretty disappointing season up to this point. But in that match versus Portland, she was the best player on the field. She was absolutely causing havoc in their defense. When she got free on the goal that she assisted, she just turned on the jets and just gets in between like 2 defenders to get herself into that space and then hits an absolute peach of a cross at full speed directly into the path of Rachel Hill, who just is able to just slot it into the goal. Once they went up, I think at that point, that put them ahead 2-0. Sophie Smith was able to pull one back in the 32nd minute, but that was off an absolute howler from Caitlin Rowland, Bay FC's keeper, who tried to one-touch a pass back to her defender, but you could tell in the replay that it just hit her cleats on the bottom of her boot, and so it just like dribbled like 3 yards right into Sophie Smith's path, and there was only one way that was going to end after that. But, I mean, Bay FC, they were just able to kind of put that pressure on. A lot of it is just Oshwala and Kunda Naji are so fast and so smart. They get into tricky spaces for defenses. And I've been a big old coward with Bay FC. When we were on Loud and Proud in Orlando, which people should subscribe, great podcast, great YouTube channel, I said Bay FC could be my team that I thought could sneak up and sneak back into the playoffs. That was weeks ago. Now, last week, I had even said again, I was like, I think Bay FC could probably sneak into the playoffs. And then you and I started talking about their defense. I was like, let me walk it back a little bit. Maybe Bay FC couldn't get back in the playoffs. So I was just being a big old flip-flopper coward. I don't know if I'm still allowed to claim Bay FC at this point. I still do have questions about the defense, but I think you're spot on. If those 2 superstars like really find their rhythm, they're really, really hard to stop.
Yeah, you might be talking me into Bay FC as my playoff pick here. Their record is just so funny too. I don't even know what to do with it. Like they still have yet to draw a match, so it's either win or lose. There's 7 wins, 11 losses. So they're 4 games under 500. They're still not a very good team, but they've won 7 times in the NWSL. No small feat. Just for posterity's sake, 3 teams that we didn't mention, the bottom of the table, San Diego Wave. I don't think we can take this team seriously. 18 matches played, just 3 wins. Total mess. Think about what's going on there. They get a nice draw at home against the Spirit.
Oof.
Utah Royals might be coming on. I don't know.
Yeah.
4 wins, 3 draws, 11 losses. Counting the 2 NWSL Summer Cup wins, they've now put together 4 straight dubs in Utah. So look out. And then the Houston Dash, bottom of the table, 3 wins, 5 draws, 10 losses, just 14 points. They're the only team left in the bottom 8 that has 5 road games left of their 8. And this is just a hilarious, depending on what side of the fence you sit on. The Houston Dash need to go to Gotham, to Washington to take on the Spirit, to Orlando to take on the Pride. And then they've got the Wave and the Reign to close things out. So Houston, probably a cross-off at this point. I think we hit the finish line here. I'm going to put you on the spot. Your final 2 playoff teams, Mr. Grand Angle, who are you taking? Who makes the big dance?
The Sam Staub injury is so unfortunate because
I'm
I
with
think
you on that.
she's perfect in Lauren Donaldson's system and what we saw early in the season. Chicago sitting on 23 points. Am I going to bet against Mallory Swanson's team, though? That's the thing. That it is so hard to get past that. I'm going to say the Chicago Red Stars and Racing Louisville occupy the last 2 playoff spots.
Wow. I like it.
I hate that the Red Stars have a -2 goal differential, though. I hate that because they're a defensive first team. And so to see that, it's like, ugh, that's tricky.
You can also look at their remaining schedule. They do have 5 home games, but they've got Orlando, toughie, San Diego, that's definitely winnable. Then they've got 3 straight top 6 teams. They've got the Courage, Gotham, and KC Current. Those are their remaining home games. They have to go away to Portland, take on the Thorns, who are going to be locked in a playoff battle, I'm sure, jockeying for position late in the season. Then they go to Houston, take on the Dash, and then their final road match is against the Washington Spirit.
Oof.
So I think that's enough for your boy to maybe call it a night with regard to maybe Chicago being in this. I know they've got Mallory Swanson, but you mentioned the Staub injury. Listenaire, not quite, USW&T Listenaire. But I mean, there's a lot of issues kind of all over the park, I think, for Chicago. I am excited about them longer term. Obviously, Ludmila could come in and make a splash here as well.
Yeah.
Kind of change things up. But I think it's just going to be an absolute dogfight. So I'm with you on Racing Louisville. I want to give the Seattle Reign a special hat tip, but maybe the Reign are last season's Orlando Pride, finished real strong, just a smidge outside of the playoffs. I'm going to put Bay FC in there.
Look at you.
And this is a pick based on Rachel Kundanaji, based on Asisa Oshwala, based on Abby Dalkemper.
Yeah.
I like what they're doing, and I think they survived a really, really rough stretch.
Yeah.
Not only team wise, they survived a bunch of injuries, 11 losses. They're somehow still in a playoff spot, and I kind of like that team to maybe start to continue to develop a little bit more rhythm. I want to put a little take chip on them, making a little bit of noise heading into the playoffs here.
I love it. Good for you for having more conviction than me. I kneecapped myself. I can't even take credit. So if John and Luis from Loud and Proud Orlando are like, Grant said on our show months ago that Bay could make the playoffs, I can't even really take a full victory lap for it. Shame on me.
We opened the door for you here, buddy, to kind of like double down on it. And, you grabbed your chips back and you pulled them back into the pile.
It's just 31 goals allowed in 18 matches is tricky.
That's ancient history, bro.
Why are you talking about old shit? No, that's fair. That's fine.
All right. So we will see. We both like Louisville to make the playoffs. Grant, you've got Chicago in one of those final 2 spots. I've got Bay FC. A lot of football to be played. We're going to keep tracking this. No Twitter poll necessary. We're just going to let the final standings kind of see where we're at. To kind of rewind all the way back to our Tasty Bets pod days. It could be that none of the 3 or 4 teams that we mentioned make the playoffs at all, and it ends up being Seattle and I don't know, Angel City. Maybe that'd be pretty fitting. That'd be very Tasty Bets pod of us.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be totally surprised by that. But you know what? I think our predictions in this podcast work out a hell of a lot better than our foray into gambling.
I would agree with that. All right, quick programming reminder. We will be back next week after the Champions League draw. So I think we're going to know who the 24 teams are that are going to get whittled down to 12 that will join those 4 big dogs in the group stage of the Champions League. Shit is really warming up. Shout out to friend of the pod at Blossom996 on YouTube, who requested that we do a live stream when the draws are made. Appreciate you, Blossom. We both got day jobs. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but we'll be back very, very soon thereafter with a show. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I can see Grant. Wheels are turning on your face. Maybe we'll see if we can make that happen. But no worries. We'll be back very, very, very soon after the draw. Talk about those 12 matches and pretty much just get you fired up. So obviously you already know the ITC will be your home for the UEFA Women's Champions League, for the rest of this NWSL season, and for pretty much anything that might happen with the U.S. Women's National Team or Lily Johannes or all the things that we like to talk about.
This is a podcast that is a lot of different podcasts. So you might ask yourself, is this a learning podcast? Yes, it is. Is this an S.K. Braun podcast? Yes, it is. Is it a Croy Bethune podcast? Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
Is it a Lily Johannes podcast? Of course it is. So yeah, depending on where we are week to week, we can be your news source on various very niche items, but we'll come through for you in those occasions.
1000%. We will absolutely be here. And obviously, shout out to Blossom. And we had a bunch of people chiming in this week. YouTube, Twitter. I mean, the community was very, very, very active. Anybody that you want to shout out in particular?
The old gang was getting back together now that we're going back into the UEFA Women's Champions League. Very excited. Vespa, Benfica super supporter. Great to see you again. Go. Thanks for coming back. MLS Architect, you already know what time it is, dropping knowledge in the YouTube comments. Our senior Spain correspondent, MLS Architect. Iron Ghazi Stan, always holding us down on Twitter, gave me the heads up on Jordan Bugg's talent weeks ago when she signed with the club. So Iron Ghazi Stan, I would say one of the foremost knowers of ball. I want to shout out Carlo Wilson on YouTube. Thank you for rocking with us. Carlo's hanging out with us all the way from Latrobe, Pennsylvania. So Carlo, you're always welcome. Please tip an Arnold Palmer, tip a Rolling Rock with us anytime. You're always welcome here. Thanks for checking us out. And I got to say, especially excited to welcome back the Braun Battalion, Board, Morton, Simon. Thanks for checking in with us again, pals. Hope you're all doing well. And I'm very excited that we get to talk about a little UEFA Women's Champions League with you again.
Absolutely. I mean, full force this past week. Very, very heartwarming to see. And it's great. I mean, stretch run NWSL, Champions League just getting, I mean, like we've got months of Champions League ahead of us. I mean, I'm still pretty giddy about it.
Awesome.
All right, man. NWSL, Matchweek 18. I think we did it. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think that's largely it. I mean, I think you made one quick reference to it in terms of which direction the arrow is pointing for the Kansas City Current. I think that might be a topic for another show. But other than that, I think we covered everything.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, if we want to get to some quick arrow talk, KC Current, maybe arrow facing down. They take on the Utah Royals, whose arrow very much facing upward. That's going to be a banger. Match week 19, so stick around. Hang out with us for that as well. All right, man, I think we did it. This has been another episode of the Into the Channel podcast. A sincere thank you for watching, listening, following, liking, subscribing, dusting off your keyboard to rejoin us, Braun Battalion, Champions League crowd. You already know what time it is. Remember to like if you liked and subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grand Angle, for being the Rachel Kundanaji to Maya Sisa Oshwala. I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, buddy. You know what? Even when we do start slow, whether if it's just in one show or maybe people could argue maybe the first couple shows when we first got this thing started, maybe we started slow. You already knew we were going to get things on track. We couldn't do it without everybody always rocking with us. So thank you for watching, and we will talk to you next time.